And I got to be careful because I don't want to say something that he's not filming. Are you filming already? Did you start it already? Okay. So anyways, this picture that I have up here is actually from the Haiti owl looking down at Waimea Bay. And maybe some of you have heard of Waimea Bay. It's one of the large surf, large wave competition on this beach. Maybe some of you have known of Eddie Aikau, who was a famous surfer. And I believe he's the one that was on the Hokulea voyage. And the Hokulea is a bunch of people, and they do this regularly, like a tradition. They actually sail on a ancient type of boat from the following the currents, and they believe that the Hawaiians came through this voyage to establish what we know today as Hawaii. And so it's really interesting that he was there he's also known as a lifeguard, saved lives, and has actually lost his life at sea on one of these voyages, trying to save his crew. He never found his body. And so when I look at this picture, it kind of, when I think about growing up in an atmosphere that is completely surrounded by water, and now completely surrounded by nothing but land. I mean, there's water spots here and there, but nothing like in Hawaii. And I remember going fishing sometimes where we go 1-2 miles out and there's just a little speck of our island, and that can get pretty scary when you are completely surrounded by water. But you know, the thing about the Pacific Ocean is even though there's so much water out there, did you ever try to drink salt water? Huh? And how many of you been to the ocean? All of you have been to the ocean. How many of you have accidentally swallowed some seawater? No? No, but you're going under there and maybe it comes to your nostrils or something because you end up trying to breathe when you shouldn't be breathing. What? But the thing is that we know that sometimes people can get so thirsty that they'll drink anything. Maybe you have heard of stories where there's people that were on a raft. I know you know where I'm going with this, right? And they don't have anything to drink, and they're so thirsty that they'll drink unthinkable things to drink. And I'm going to just leave it at that and let your mind and the imagination go wild. But the thing is that if we can just hunger and thirst for God living within us, would we be doing anything different than what we are doing today?
Oh, yeah.
I know there's a lot of people in our community that don't put God first in their lives. And maybe we need to look at ourselves. Is God really that important for us that He is like on the top of the list as far as our priorities go?
Yes.
The number one commandment, and I keep on reminding us over and over because I got to remind myself that we must love the Lord, our God. Okay, you finish. With all our heart, with all our soul, with all our strength, and with all our mind. And also to love our neighbor as ourselves.
Sometimes.
You know, if we just would do that, we don't have to worry about all the laws that are listed in the Bible even, right? Because we're going to do them. But why do we have have, in our nation, in our community here in Alliance, I bet you if you went to the law books, the ordinances that we have, I bet you even our city council members don't know all the laws in the book.
That's true.
But why are there so many laws in the book? Because people are not loving God with everything they got, and they're not loving their neighbors as themselves. And if they did that, guess what? We don't need all those laws. Laws are basically guidelines, just like the Ten Commandments, right? Thou shalt not, honor your father and mother, right? If we did all these things, we don't have to worry about not knowing how to live our daily lives. Now I'm going to take you through the 4th chapter, and you guys know this story, right? Jesus, traveling as he was walking through, goes to Samaria. Now, if you really understood the geography of it all, okay, here's Galilee, and there's Samaria, and then Jerusalem, right? A lot of the Jews would bypass Samaria. Why? Anybody know? Because they didn't like the Samaritans. Why didn't they like the Samaritans? They weren't just Gentiles. They were what we call half-breeds. They were Jews that intermixed. And so here, Jesus is coming, and he goes to this town, and it says, now Jesus learned that the Pharisees had heard that he was gaining and baptizing more disciples than John, although in fact it was not Jesus who baptized but his disciples. So he left Judea and went back once more to Galilee, up here. And now he had to go through Samaria, right in the middle, right? So he came to a town in Samaria called Sychar, near the plot of ground Jacob had given to his son Joseph. And Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired as he was from the journey, sat down by the well, and it was about noon. Now, Jesus tired? That just shows you that he was human. Because I'm pretty sure when he was growing up, he probably tripped and fell and maybe cut open his knee, and he bled just like humans do. And when he didn't feel good, maybe he got sick, maybe he would cry, and sometimes we forget that humanity of Jesus, that he experienced everything that we have growing up. So here he is, he's tired, he sits down by the well, and it was about noontime. And okay, so what's noontime? I mean, everybody, when it's 12 o'clock, it's time to eat, right? So not only is he tired, and not only is he hungry, he is thirsty. And when the Samaritan woman came to draw water, Jesus said to her, will you give me a drink? Now what's wrong with this question? Huh? What's wrong with this question?
She was considered unclean.
She? What? She? Get that word, she? What does that say? That pronoun means she's a woman. Jews didn't associate with a stranger woman, right? And here he's talking to this woman, and he says, give me a drink. Not only was he talking to her, he was asking her for a drink of water. That's something that they didn't do, right? His disciples had gone into town to buy some food. I guess they were hungry, so they figured they'd go get something to eat, right? The Samaritan woman said to him, you are a Jew, and I am a Samaritan woman. Wow, that's a double whammy, right? Not only is she a woman, she's a Samaritan woman. Man, that's why those Samaritans, the Jews, just despised. In fact, there's a story, remember the parable that Jesus told about the Good Samaritan? And then all the religious guys, they kind of passed by that guy that got hurt on the road. And Jesus meant it to say that he was not only a man that came by, but he was a Samaritan. because the Jews hated the Samaritans that much. And he said, "You a Jew and I'm a Samaritan woman, how can you ask me, a Samaritan woman, for a drink?" For Jews do not associate with Samaritans. And maybe there was, I'm not sure, but I think it was only one-sided. The Samaritans wanted to be a part, or wanted to have a relationship with the Jews, but Jews just hated and despised the Samaritans. And that's because, God said that, you shouldn't intermarry. But the thing is, they were looking at the legalistic point of view and not the love that Jesus had for this woman. So Jesus answered her, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is that is asking you for a drink, you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water." Now, just imagine for a second that you're this woman, okay, you're a Samaritan woman. Basically, you're an unclean person, right? Because you're a Samaritan and you're a woman, okay? What's he talking about? Living water. You can see how confused she would have been, right? "Sir," the woman says, "you have nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. Where can you get this living water? Are you greater than our father Jacob, who gave us this well and drank from it himself, as did also his sons and his livestock?" Now, you can imagine Jesus, in a calm voice, answered and says, "Everyone who drinks from this water will be thirsty again." So that's something that the woman would agree with, right? Yeah, because we got to keep on drinking. We got to keep on drawing water from the well. But whoever drinks the water that I give them will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give them will become in them a spring of water welling up to eternal life. And the woman said to him, "Sir, give me this water so that I won't get thirsty and have to keep on coming here to draw water." So, what is the woman thinking? Physical, right? On a physical level, I get thirsty, I drink, I quench my thirst, but then a little later, I need some more water, and I have to get more water to quench my thirst. But Jesus is speaking to her on a spiritual level. Now, this is what I mean by communication, right? Jesus speaking spiritual truths into her life, and she's returning with physical matters. And Jesus knows this because he's just kind of teaching her something. He wants her to understand the truth of who Jesus is. But this woman doesn't know who this man is, right? Yet. So he told her, "Go, call your husband and come back." For an ordinary woman, it would be no problem, right? He's asking you to go call your husband and come back. Well, what happened? "I have no husband," she replied. She didn't admit what was going on really in her life, right? How many of us do that from time to time? God tries to ask us where are we at in our spiritual life, and we try to evade the question. I mean, you have ever done that, huh? You kind of think God doesn't know that if I kind of tell a white lie that he won't know. Well, this is this woman. "I have no husband." And Jesus said to her, "You're right when you say that you have no husband. The fact is you have had 5 husbands. And the man that you have now is not even your husband. You're not married to him. So you're living with this guy, and he's not your husband. You're living in sin." Basically, you didn't have to tell her that. She knew that. And so the woman says, "What you have just said is quite true." So now, think of what's going through her mind, right? how does this guy know what's going on? He must be something, right? Sir, the woman said, I can see that you are a prophet. Our ancestors worshipped on this mountain. But you Jews claim that the place where we must worship is in Jerusalem. Isn't that what we tend to do? Is we tend to, when we're faced with truth, when God tries to point something out in our life, we try to change the subject? Huh? Isn't that what happens? So we're going to talk about worship now. Where do we worship? And I would imagine that, you know, the Jewish, Gentile, Samaritan had some kind of belief still in the Judeo God, and that they had worshipped God, Jehovah God. But the woman, Jesus replied, believe me, that the time is coming when you will worship the Father neither on this mountain or nor in Jerusalem. Well, what did he mean by that? Now, how many of you have been to Jerusalem? Anybody? Okay. So is that the place where we're supposed to worship? How about, well, there's no mountains here. That's what's happened. The time has come already where we will worship Him in spirit and in truth, right? You Samaritans worship what you do not know. We worship what we know, for salvation is from the Jews. Yet a time is coming, and has now come, when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth, for they are the kind of worshipers the Father seeks. And God is spirit, and His worshipers must worship in the spirit and in truth. Now, all of you are going to the Truth Project right now, and you can see that truth is really important. That this is the reason Jesus came into the world, is to testify to the truth. And the woman said, I know that the Messiah called Christ is coming. So apparently she has had some teaching on the Torah, the law, the history, and that the prophecies of the Messiah was going to come. And so she knew about this, right? And when He comes, He will explain everything to us. And Jesus, probably in his mind, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to explain it to you. And then Jesus declared, I am the one speaking to you. Whoa, can you imagine being the woman? And someone says, this one that you're talking about, that's me! Open your eyes and see! Yeah, that rhymes, doesn't it? I am He. Just then His disciples returned, and they were surprised with Him talking with the woman. See? That's that culture, right? You don't talk to women, especially a Samaritan woman, but no one. They were smart enough to don't say anything. No one asked, what do you want, or why are you talking with her? Then leaving her water jar, the woman went back to the town and said to the people, now, you know how small town people are, right? Everybody knows everybody's business, right? So the woman back in the town and said to the people, come, see a man who told me everything I ever did. Could this be the Messiah? She went over there and said, you know, I've been talking to this guy. Could he be the Messiah? No, it's like, she's excited. Because not only did she was asking a question, it was like, what is that, rhetorical question? She knew that this was the Messiah. But she wanted to convince these guys, and you know, hey, they came out of the town and made their way toward Him. Oh, what happened there? And they made their way toward Him. So the thing is that we have to understand that not only did Jesus talk to this Samaritan woman and accept her where she was at, he knew what she was gonna do.